we're actually the second educators in your children's life because you are the first teachers. And we want to work in partnership with all of you because we can't do this work alone.
Que su voz cuenta y que si nos unimos podemos lograr grandes cosas para nuestros hijos.
I love the diversity of the school district. Whether you know it or not, this district speaks 83 different languages.
To know that the administrative offices, they have my back. Not only my back, but they have my child's back.
Every child, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of income, regardless of need, every child deserves to have their needs met.
No one person can do it alone. The teachers can't do it alone. Administration cannot do it alone. It's going to take the parents, the community.
I'm very thankful for the partnerships that we have with our communities in both cities that represent our school district. We always ask the question, how can we even do this better? And I think that's where community schools come in because that takes us to the next level.
Welcome to the September 7th meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Superintendent, will you take the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Clark,
Here.
Mr. Huey,
Here.
Miss Larrett,
Here.
Miss Lofthouse,
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here.
All are here. Thank you.
All right, we will be going into closed session on matters, student matters, employer-employee relations, conference with legal counsel regarding litigation, conference with real property negotiators, and personnel matters. But before we go into closed session, is there any public comment on the closed session agenda? No. Okay, then we will recess and we will be back at 6 o'clock sharp. Thank you. We are at recess. Welcome to the September 7th meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Education. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, broadcast statement. A broadcast and recording is being made at the direction of the board, and the broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board Policy 1313 promotes mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among employees, parents, and the public. We will treat staff, parents, and members of the public with respect and expect the same in return. If any member of the public uses obscenities or communicates in a demanding, loud, insulting, and/or demeaning manner, the board will calmly and politely admonish the person to communicate civilly. Public comments during board meetings are an important component of public engagement and transparency. Members of the public will not be permitted to yield their speaking time to another member of the public. No comments were received today by the 3 p.m. Deadline. Per the Brown Act, the board is not allowed to enter into a two-way discussion on any matter that is not on the agenda. Superintendent, will you take the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Melajor,
Here.
Mr. Merrill,
Here.
Mr. Clark,
Here.
Mr. Huey,
Here.
Miss Larrett,
Here.
Miss Lofthouse,
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here.
All are here.
All right. Item 5, reporting out of closed session. Superintendent?
We have no action to report out of closed session.
Thank you. Item 6, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Hui. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Melchior. Superintendent, you take the roll, please.
Mr. Melchior,
Aye.
Mr. Merrill,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Hui,
Aye.
Ms. Larrett,
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse,
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, let's see. Special presentations, item 7. We'll start with the students. FCLA highlights connections from Folsom Middle School. Superintendent.
Well, this is the first of our student and staff presentations for the year, so we welcome our Folsom Middle School team of staff members and students who are going to talk about making connections and different ways that they're creating an inclusive and welcoming environment. So with that, I welcome Dr. Daniels to the podium to kick us off.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we're ready to start, and there are our presenters tonight. There's a couple of people on there. Gemma and Miss Monday weren't able to join us, but everyone else is here, and so we'll get started. So at our Welcome Back breakfast this year and the Welcome Back School that presentation that Dr. Kaligian and Mr. Reed were part of, we had a keynote by Sam Drazen, and Sam has come and talked to us before at our leadership team meetings. And so Sam shares with us the importance of inclusion in classrooms. And so with that, we wanted to share with the board some things we're doing at Folsom Middle School as far as inclusion. And so I want to welcome to the podium 2 of our awesome teachers. So I'm going to have Miss Hendrickson, Bernie Hendrickson, and Miss Madison Lee come up.
Thanks, guys. We do need that.
Welcome.
We brought friends. My name is Bernie Hendrickson. I'm a PE teacher at Folsom Middle, and I teach or actually facilitate the buddy program at Folsom Middle. We started this about 4 years ago. I go to the students at the end of the year, the 7th grade classes, and ask for volunteers to be part of this program, and we get an overwhelming response. It's difficult to cut students, but we can only have so many. And then at the beginning of the year, they pair up with the buddies from Miss Lee's class and get to know each other. And they facilitate our program. We do mostly the 6th grade standards. We do all the testing. We try to, in the beginning of the day, they walk, and that's when they do their SEL, so they get to know each other and talk. And then at the end of the period, we have a circle time where the students take turns asking questions about things in their lives or what they're doing in their lives, and then we go around the circle and share. And I believe we have pictures up there we could show. This is a picture of circle time, and then we're doing our fitness testing. And then this is from Madison.
So I'm Madison Lee. I'm the independent living schools teacher at Folsom Middle School. And the Buddy PE class has just been amazing for all of our students. It's a class that everyone looks forward to because of how much fun everyone's having. And I've personally seen real friendships being built during this time, which is amazing. I know kids are going to the movies on weekends and things like that. So it's really incredible to see what the program has done. These students have created a community where we're not only welcome, but we're a really important part of it. So amazing. And then the adults aren't having to do much. The students are doing everything. Ms. Hendrickson obviously is doing a great job teaching PE, but the kids are doing a lot of it, and it's
these
amazing.
young women.
Yeah. But because the Buddy PE class has been so successful, we're now trying to create similar experiences in both our elective and in our advisory classes. So these are a couple of photos from our exploratory art class, and we're grouped up.
That's for PE.
We're grouped up in art and in a couple of our other electives. But the exploratory teachers have been working with myself and the other ILS teacher to ensure that the exploratory experience is more than just us showing up and completing an activity. Instead, we're working really hard. We want it to be a place where the kids are invested in one another and they feel comfortable relying on each other for help, not only the adults in the room. So that's something that's really important to all of us. But the students who are here with us today are really why this is all possible. So these guys back here, and I think we're gonna hear from the
Lucy
next.
is a graduate. She's at Vista, and she still comes back to Maddie's class, so she's amazing. And Emmy, this is her second year in this, and they both volunteered to come and talk about their experiences with it. So we'll let them take it away, because they basically
Yes.
run the program. I just sit back and watch.
I always knew that I wanted to do something with education and kids, but at FMS I found my true passion. I was in Miss Hendrickson's Partners in PE class for 2 years. In my 8th grade year, I got the honor of being Miss Lee's TA. For the past 2 years, I have gotten to work one-on-one with my best friend Matthew. Throughout my experience with the special education program, I have learned many things about myself and others. I have been taught patience and learned to accept everyone for who they are, no matter our differences. I've gotten punched and gotten my hair pulled, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Working with kids all over the spectrum is rewarding and a great experience. These kids are truly some of the sweetest people you'll meet. Working with kids on the spectrum isn't for everyone because some people don't have the patience, but many just don't want to put in the effort. Working with these kids over the past years have been some of my best memories. Although I am sad to leave Miss Lee's students, I am so excited to create new bonds with Miss Sutami's class.
Hello, I'm Emmy Franklin, 8th grade from FMS. Recently, my generation has been very struggled with being very self-involved, and we usually think about ourselves and how horrible our life is, but this program has really shown me that the world doesn't revolve around me and other students around me. I have made some really incredible connections with different people. One of my friends, Gemma, who has a very special place in my heart, I would never have met if it weren't for this class. It is amazing that my school has this program, giving the partners and the buddies chances to interact with others and think about someone other than themselves, and this can only benefit everyone. I've made so many new friends throughout these 2 years I've been with them, and I wouldn't change it for the world, like Lucy said. It's been a really wonderful experience, and I'm glad I did it.
I think we're gonna hear from 2 more students. You guys wanna come up? Yeah. Jake, you go first. You got this. You got this. All right, so thanks, Lucy. We just wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys like about your buddy PE class?
What's your favorite part, Jake?
My buddy?
Your buddy. Okay. What about you, Ezra? What's your favorite thing about your PE class?
Doing kickball.
Kickball. Okay. What else?
We did floor hockey last year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You told me something that you like doing when you get to PE.
Going dressing in the locker room.
You can say that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You can tell them.
Alright, so my favorite thing is in the locker room is dressing, because we always have to dress because we don't have to be late.
Yeah, and you get to dress in the locker room.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just like everybody else.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Anything else, or is that it?
Jake.
You guys feel good about it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Good job, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Was there a slide 10? I see there's,
Yeah, there's other slides.
oh, okay, got it. Just the conclusion. Thank you for the presentation. Let's see, no staff presentation tonight, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, we're moving on to agenda item 8, which is public comment. This is the time where if members of the public would like to provide a comment on any topic that's not on the agenda. If you want to speak on an item on the agenda, there will be an opportunity when we get to that agenda item. I don't have any cards. Do we have cards? Okay. All right, let's see. The first speaker is Sheila Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you, board, for having me here today. I'm nervous, but I have something that this is the 3rd time that we have been here as a group. My other colleagues had other commitments right now, so they weren't unable to be here, but I know spiritually they're with me. This is our third time of being here, bringing it to the board about being a registrar for the middle school. Again, my name is Sheila Johnson. I work at Mitchell Middle School. I've been with the district for 28 years. Very proud of that. And I've been with the middle school for 5 years. And we started this, bringing it to your attention about reclassifying our position. And we ended up doing this last August, not this past month, but a year ago. And we still haven't gotten this settled yet. So I'm bringing it to the board to let you know that it has not been settled yet. The board or the district has put it as they want the high school to be different than the middle school, which is fine, but the rate that they want us to be at is a 7, and we feel the high school is a 9. We would be okay to be in the range 8. If that could be, we would really appreciate it for what we do. I did bring handouts for you to see what jobs we do and what we fulfill for the job descriptions that we do. The only thing different that we don't do from the high school is credits. We do not translate and do all the credits that the high school does, but everything else we do, and we have to do it on our own in each individual schools. We do not have an extra clerk like the high schools do. I know that their volume is bigger, but in our schools, we handle 900 kids ourselves, and we do all the filing, all enrollment, disenrolled, do the mailing, do everything with the records, and we would like to be recognized and be able to have that title as registrar with the actual step range of 8. And that's it. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there any other public comments? Anybody online? Nope. All right. Let's move to item 9, reports of district organizations. We'll start with the Student Advisory Board.
Hello, everyone. Just yesterday, we had our first SAB meeting with over 40 students in attendance. It was a great turnout. There were a few communication issues where just a few students couldn't make it, but we'll get those worked out before next month, and we are looking to have a full house. It came smoothly, it went smoothly. We had a couple icebreakers just to lighten the mood, and then we drafted some norms for ourselves, and we drafted some subcommittee ideas, which we will finalize, and we'll divvy those out to the students by next board or next SAB meeting. So we should have students delegated to their own subcommittees by then. Overall, it was very successful, and I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to working with these students this upcoming school year. Thank you.
Quick question, SAB, that includes the middle school, correct?
Yeah.
All 3 grades or just?
Yes,
okay.
all middle schools and all high schools.
Okay, thanks. All right, let's see. Next, we have the California School Employees Association. Okay. We will move forward then to the Folsom Cordova Education Association. Welcome.
All right. So good evening, family, board members, staff, and teachers. First, I wanted to thank the HR staff for all their hard work over the last 2 months, getting the staff recruited and processed for our district. I know that they're still processing over 200 applications throughout the employee groups. Our teachers are looking forward to the support in their classrooms and appreciate the support they are currently having. Also, I wanted to thank publicly Lori, Angie, and Jody and their entire team of teachers for continuing training and supporting our new teachers, and hopefully soon we'll be able to branch out to support any veteran teachers seeking coaching. Now for the challenges that face us, the teachers. Special education teachers, gen ed teachers alike, no matter if they are interns, new to the profession, or veterans, are feeling overwhelmed and haggard. And it's only been 22 days of school. We have had new and veteran teachers thinking about leaving right now because it's just too hard, even with all the support being given. I think that we can all agree that this job is hard and it can be life-consuming. The certificated staff is at a breaking point, and again, it's only the very early school year. They have poured their hearts and souls into making their classrooms and their offices a place where students want to attend, and their reward for this effort is an offer of 2%, raised with a possibility for more if a couple things happen. One, more students decide to go ahead and attend school. How is this in the teacher's control? I have sat in meetings this week and had an administrator tell me, we don't have control over what parents do if they send their children to school or not. But the teacher's raises are dependent upon a parent's right and what they choose for their own child. And heavens help us if our governor decides that this year's strain of the flu is too much and starts shutting down schools. Our members definitely don't control that. Secondly, then the offer included the COLA for the next year, 24-25. What does that mean? If next year's COLA is at least 3.97%, we get back pay for this year's salary. This sounds like the deferral of funds that the state likes to go ahead and employ on this district. And you all complain about that practice. And does this mean that next year the same pattern falls and becomes a vicious cycle? This offer was given at the same night as Sac City's settlement of 10%, which had a significant impact on our members. And yes, we all understand that the district's funding is not the same. However, this year's COLA was 8.22% and the offer was 2%. Approximately 25% of the COLA this district has been guaranteed by the state's budget. COLA stands for cost of living adjustment. In the past 12 months, the cost of living, inflation, has been as high as 8.5% and is now 3.7% on top of that. Even your own budget slides take this into account. But when it comes to your employees, that doesn't seem to matter to this board. If you take a look at the budget slides and see the bottom line, there is a surplus for the next 2 years. And no surprise, the third year is in the negative because we want to be conservative with our forecast of 88. But we all know that student population is growing, or why would we be building new schools? The HR theme this year has been recruit, train, and retain. Your certificated staff will not be retained with this consistent disrespect we feel when this offer of salary. If this is the plan for retaining your staff, go back to the drawing board and start your calculations over. This offer isn't even a starting point for negotiations. Go sharpen your pencils and try again. Good evening.
Thank you. Next, we have the Folsom Cordova Leadership Association. Welcome.
Good evening, Dr. Kleekin and Board President Reed. Our presentation was with Dr. Daniels earlier, so no presentation tonight.
Okay. And finally, we have the District English Learner Advisory Committee. Welcome.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Kaligian, President of the Board, Mr. Reed, and my esteemed colleagues, as well as our board members. Just a brief update, just as a reminder, part of the English Learner Advisory Committee, the district, is advising on programs, and tomorrow we open up our Saturday school for the first day of the school year. The history on our Saturday schools, Spanish school being at Rancho Cordova, and we have immigrant school in Cordova Meadows. And the history goes back over 20 years of supporting our immigrant and second language learners for a 6th day of instruction. We are excited about reporting that we are enrolling close to 100 students at Saturday school. We'll see what we see on that day. That's exciting news. And I'll report an update on that. But that's our report for DLAC. We're scheduled to meet in October, and we have a series of trainings going on for both School Site Council and ELAC in the next coming weeks. So that's our report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to agenda consent. Is there any items on the consent agenda that anybody wants removed? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve consent?
I'll move.
Motion by Ms. Lofthouse, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Merrill. Superintendent, will you take the roll?
Yes, Mr. Melajor,
Aye.
Mr. Merrill,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Hui,
Aye.
Ms. Larrett,
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse,
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
And do we have introductions today?
We do. One of the items on the consent agenda tonight was approving the personnel action form, and we have an announcement to make of one of our administrators who is going to be the new principal at Alder Creek Elementary. So Folsom Cordova is pleased to announce that Miss Sarah Parensen will be the new principal at Alder Creek Elementary and will open the school for the 24-25 school year. Ms. Parensen is currently the principal of Empire Oaks, where she has served since 2019. She's an educational leader in our district. She's served Folsom Cordova for 22 years as a teacher and an administrator in both Folsom and Rancho Cordova at the elementary and secondary levels. She's led Empire Oaks into California Distinguished School status. She's been an AXA Administrator of the Year and has held National Board Certification. Preparations for Alder Creek's staffing and implementation of programming will begin this school year. As such, Ms. Parensen will assume her duties as the principal of Alder Creek Elementary after winter break on January 2nd, 2024, and will work collaboratively with the interim principal of Empire Oaks Elementary for a smooth transition. The announcement of the interim principal will be made in the upcoming weeks, and the district will keep the Empire Oaks community informed. So with that, congratulations, Ms. Parensen.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kaligian, President Reed, members of the board, esteemed colleagues. Thank you for this exceptional opportunity. I'm excited for the challenge of a new school, the opportunity to build a staff and a culture where students and families of Alder Creek can grow and thrive. I'm looking forward to working with the various departments, fiscal, HR, CNI, facilities, while also working closely with Kanan, who's done this not too long ago, to prepare for a smooth start to the 24-25 school year. So thank you for trusting me with this assignment. I'm extremely honored and excited about this opportunity to serve the families of the Alder Creek community. Thank you.
Congratulations. It's every school only has one first principal, so congratulations on that. All right. That takes us to item 11, discussion action. First one is approve 2022-2023 unaudited actuals financial report, actual revenues and expenditures reported on this annual state budget forms, general fund, and other funds for the state of California. Superintendent.
Yes, Ed Code requires that our Board of Education approve an annual statement of all our revenues and expenditures of the district from the preceding year, and it must be filed with the county by September 15th. And we must verify that everything is accurate in that report. So part of that reporting is bringing that to the board and reporting out what has changed as far as revenues or expenditures since the time the board adopted the budget by the end of the previous year. So with that, I'm going to invite Mr. Martin to share some of those updates.
Good evening. So what you'll see here is we have a, oh, you won't see anything. And really what tonight's presentation is closing the books for the previous year for 22-23 and just highlighting some of the items of change or note from the last time we presented 22-23 information, which would have been when the budget was adopted for 23-24 in June. So that would have been information as of May, what we knew at the beginning of May. You can see that just some regular boilerplate that we always put. One of the biggest things is this is just a summary. This is a PowerPoint presentation, and what you guys are actually approving and what we submit to the county and the state are the SACS documents that are the 200 plus pages that are part of the board packet. And what we do at this point is we complete closing of the book. So this is really the closing of all outstanding expenditures and activity. A lot of times when you see changes between the last time we presented and this is often because of either expenditures or activity that we thought were gonna happen, did not occur, or vice versa, right? Something changed. So normally it's related into the 4s and 5s, which is services, contracts, supply accounts. And then there is some staffing components when it comes to paying for summer school. That happens over the last bit of time, different categorical programs, things of that nature. These numbers that we're presenting to you are going to be the final numbers, excluding any adjustments that the auditors may do when they audit our books. So, when we look at this, we talked about we're looking at revenues, expenditures, and activities in between. And then you're also going to see in the SACS documents adopted budget for 23-24. For this document, though, we're going to compare to what we thought we were going to close the books, which would have been estimated actuals, compared to what the unaudited actuals, what we actually closed the books. And so similar to the style that we do during the budget presentation, we've broken out revenues and expenditures by unrestricted and restricted. Again, reminding everybody that the unrestricted side is what it sounds like. There are limited restrictions on it. We do have some funds in that account that we locally restrict, like supplemental funds that have to be used specifically for unduplicated students and some of those activities. But for the most part, unrestricted funds are funds that can be used for any priority needed. On the restricted side, which is the blue section, those are funds where they are received for very specific purposes. The big ticket items there would be like special education, Title I through IV, some of those types of programs. As you can see, for the revenue side on the unrestricted, the large ticket item would be the local income. That went up about $2 million over what we had estimated in June. About a quarter of that is a relationship to our PERS and STIRS, our pension trust account. So at the end of the year, we recognize the paper gain that we receive based off of, because that is in more or less like a mutual fund investment structure. As such, over the course of the year, obviously, on the day of June 30th, whatever that value is in the stock market, that is what's recognized. So we did see a gain in that value. And so we recognize it as interest income at the end of the year. So that's really a paper recognition. The next day, that number could be different. So it's just a snapshot at that moment in time. It's only on paper. It's not a recognized, realized gain until the district moves it out of that account. So just keep that in mind because that number could drop. So it's recognizing revenue at the time. Other state income, some of the bigger ticket items was the fourth quarter for our lottery. Our lottery revenues came in higher than what we projected. That was, I think, due to some of the almost $1 billion lottery participation levels. And so a lot of people were playing the lottery, so those numbers went up significantly. And some other adjustments for transportation. I think we had some increases there as well. On the restricted side, you see the largest single item is about $8 million in other state income. That is regards to the one-time, there were two pots of money that the state had approved for us in 22-23. One was a learning recovery pot of money, and the other one is art and music and instructional materials pot. In June, there was a projection that those dollars were going to be cut significantly. About $8 million, I think, is what we have there. Because the governor was originally proposing a significant cut to both of those. So that would have been the information we used when we were building the budget in May. When they finalized the budget, those did not receive the cut near as significant as we anticipated. And so the majority of the dollars did come back. And so that's what that's being reflective of, is that revenue being recognized in that year. That is going to definitely increase our ending fund balance in our restricted account. But we have to understand that that's because we received the money so late in the year that we really weren't able to start spending those funds. So what's going to happen is, because those funds can be spent over, I believe it's either 3 or 4 years each, what our plan is to do is spend it equally or close to equally over that 4-year period. So there is going to be a significant increase to your ending fund balance that then we will spend down as we spend down those monies. So for like learning recovery, that's one of the things we're using that for right now is some of the intervention staff that we have at some of the sites, and then also like the teachers on special assignment that we have that are doing some of the mentoring and training for some of our new staff. Some of those things are being paid out of learning recovery. Okay. Any other questions about the revenues increasing? We normally don't see revenues jump that much between June and there, but as we talked about, there was a couple kind of unique situations. The other one I would speak to is on the local income. Our revenue increased on our interest accounts that we had. One reason, because we got extra money from the state, that extra money. But two, the interest rates, just so you're all aware, from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, in the treasury, local treasury that we had, increased 1% each quarter, within the quarter. So we went from a 1% rate of return that we anticipated. Normally you average that out over the year. By the fourth quarter, we are getting now a 4% rate of return. That's an annualized rate, but still, just quadrupling the amount of interest that we receive with regards to an investment interests is significant. So, continuing on expenses, this is a little smaller, but really the big takeaways from this is up on the unrestricted side. We see there that what we were budgeting in expenditures and what we actually had was about $2 million less. And that is primarily for books and supplies and contracted services. So a couple of big ticket items in there, just so everybody's aware. We had some large budgeted items in the transportation area and for some software purchases. Those activities did not end up happening by June 3rd. So it looks like we have savings of $1.5 million. But what will really happen is those expenses, if they're not completed by June 30th, if we've not received the service, we roll it into the next year. So at first interim next year, those expenditures will then be reflected there at that point. So it looks as though additional monies are falling out. We have more money in the ending fund balance, but that money then will be budgeted to be spent in the following fiscal year. Okay? And so those are some of the big ticket items. On the restricted account, we do normally see money falling out year to year for those events. Primarily, that's because we have a lot of federal-related dollars that we allocate at the budget cycle. We normally try to allocate all of the funds being spent. You can't recognize the revenue without recognizing expenditure, just because of how the accounting is. And so what normally happens is, so like on our Title I program, at the end of the year, if all of our school sites haven't fully expended their Title I funds, then the lines that we had for maybe supplies or services for them, we decrease the expense, but correspondingly, the federal revenue drops for that. And so that's kind of an offset entry that will be reflected in the next year. Overall, though, you can see expenditures dropped by about $8 million over adopted budget from the unrestricted and restricted combined. So when you bring the budgets together, you can see here again, what we're seeing is surplus over what was projected, but ultimately we still have a deficit in the unrestricted column by about $1.3 million. We were anticipating about a $7 million decrease in the fund balance. It only ended up being 1.3, but it is still a deficit. So we still are decreasing our ending fund balance on the unrestricted side. You see the restricted side, though, jumps significantly. And that is because of primarily the two pots of money that I was talking about, which is the Learning Recovery Grant, about $15 million received there, and the Art, Music, Instructional Materials Grant, about $10 million. So there's about $25 million that we're receiving in those two programs that at this time, it falls into the ending fund balance, but then will be spent out, and that fund balance will drop as we spend out those funds over the next 3-4 years. So you can see the breakdown of our different accounts. You can see that with the committed area, those are really the dollars that are unrestricted dollars, but then have been identified locally restricted for activities. You can see the very first one is about $5 million. That's the money that's in the fiscal agent account, right? That is so we ended last year right around $5 million in there, and so we're at 5.4. That extra $400,000 is recognized. That was the revenue that was part of the revenue recognized. You can see other accounts, the instructional materials account. That pot is, along with the restricted lottery money, is used for textbook adoptions, instructional materials, and those pieces. And then you can see other reserves for smaller accounts and services. The other big ticket item is supplemental funds. We ended with an ending fund balance of about $8 million. That is actually an increase over prior year. Part of the reason for that is because of the fact that we moved out some expenditures that had been allocated to supplemental funds when we did an audit. If you recall, we did an audit of the supplemental funds account. So there was about $1.5 million that we moved out of expenditures that had been being charged to supplemental that now are in the unrestricted general fund. And then that allowed us for this upcoming year, for 23-24, to allocate additional dollars directly to the sites. And that's part of the new supplemental funding component that we were talking about. So those monies are being spent out in the next few years through the supplemental allocation to our sites. So that $8 million will be spent down. And then the other assigned items, the last few items there, the largest single item on that is set aside for future district uncertainties. That is a combination of some of the expenditures that we carried over into next year, along with just funds that have not been designated for a specific purpose at this time. However, it should be recognized that we're budgeting a decrease in the ending fund balance for next year of $10 million. So that $7.7 million would be used to offset that $10 million decrease to the ending fund balance. The other allocation there is one for professional development. That is the professional development that will be happening this year that has already started to happen. The board allocated specific money. It was a 2-year MOU that we agreed to do professional development. And so those were the dollars that were allocated specifically for this year's professional development to buy the days for staff and then all the professional development pieces that go along with it. You can see there's also some startup money for Alder Creek Elementary. That's for materials that aren't covered through facilities. So facilities can pay for the furniture, the technology, and for student technology, and it can pay for the building, but it can't pay for things like classroom materials or the office equipment. So furniture and equipment for the technology equipment specifically for like the office staff is not covered under the bond. So that will be some of the money there to pay for some of those activities. Think of the materials we'll need for the custodians. It's just like when you move in a new house and have a new refrigerator, everything, you have to replace everything pretty much, right? Start over. So that $300,000 will go towards some of that library books, things of that nature. All right. So continuing on, in the SACS forms, you will see all the other funds. I didn't break out details of those funds. None of those funds had any kind of impact to the general fund other than the standard contributions and transfers that we do. So I didn't have anything specific to speak to those. And then there are what are called supplemental forms. And what we normally, the one that actually is signed off on is this, the authorization form to say that the budget is meeting the requirements. And so that will be one document that you guys will, actually I think the clerk signs off on that document. So. Timelines, so what's next for the budget? The next big date for us is the CalPADS date. That will be when we know where enrollment is. We do believe enrollment is up over what was built in the adopted budget in June. If the numbers hold, it's about 200 students above. That's part of the conversation with the negotiations is obviously the way we have funding is by ADA. And so that's what we're trying to tie some of the things to is additional funding. So if additional students come, there's an opportunity for additional funds that would be available to negotiate and put into the budget. You can see we have budget advisory committees already scheduled for starting in December. And then we're looking at first interim and continuing on there. I always speak to everybody in the fact that the June budget is kind of a holding budget or more or less giving you a directional budget, telling you kind of where we're going as a district, because the truth is that that June budget doesn't have real numbers behind it when it comes to what our enrollment attendance is, what the state is going to fund us. As you heard, we didn't know how much money we were going to get in some of those one-time funds or how much cuts we were going to get. That's because we're doing that budget in April and May, right? Actually January through May. And we don't actually know finalized staffing. At first interim, we will know all those numbers. So that number in December will be the first time we see a real budget of what we have when it comes to the financial status of the district. And you can see other dates in there that we included with regards to impacts to the 23-24 budget cycle. So, questions? Questions?
Questions from the board? I have a quick question about the Alder Creek startup costs.
Yes.
Is that comparable to what we had provided to Mangini Ranch?
Yeah, that we use that number, same number.
Same amount?
Yeah. Jerry had numbers that calculated kind of what we had to do for startups for the site.
When you went through everything it needs to cover, at first I'm like, oh, that seems to be plenty of money. And then you kept on describing the materials, I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's going to be enough money. You're confident that's a good startup amount?
Yeah, I think for the core things that we need, I think that's enough dollars to start that process, yes.
Okay. All right. So let's see. This is an action item. Actually, let me go to the public first. Is there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? Okay. Welcome.
Jeanette Sanzabach, FCA president. So I guess I have a question towards Sean. He went ahead, if you want to, well, I think it was an offhand remark. He said that there was an increase in students. That's what was tied in negotiations. What was presented to us was an increase in percentage of attendance. So right now we are set at 93% of attendance rate, and our possibility of more funds is if that attendance rate increases.
Sean, question. Obviously, we get money from ADA, but we obviously get money from more students too, right?
Right. So the way it works is currently in the budget, we have the equivalent of ADA of 19,300 ADA. And that is based off of a 94% attendance rate of our enrollment. That enrollment number that we are looking at for the up this year looks like we may be about 200 students enrolled higher, a little over 200 students. Correspondingly, if you calculate still at that 94, same percentage rate, if the percentage rate was the same, that would then create additional ADA, and the ADA is how the funding would work. So the idea there is if the idea is if our current enrollment is up, then there is a likelihood that we would get additional ADA, and that additional ADA, then we could share that, well, we would pretty much give all of that additional ADA funding as part of negotiations. That's the idea behind it. So obviously during negotiations, that might have got presented in a different way. We can definitely talk with the teams on all of that so that everybody understands. There really wouldn't be any additional work on anybody's part if the students are already here and they attend at the rate that we had already projected. It would be additionally, if the ADA could grow even higher, if it could be 95% or 96, then there's an additional money that would be generated from that, and we would want to try to also give that additional money to our groups as well, potentially, if that worked out.
What was the district-wide attendance percentage or rate pre-pandemic, so 2019?
Pre-COVID, the 3-year average was about 90. This is to seabeds, so to a static date, but it was about 95.7%, 95.8.
Okay.
The 2 years since COVID, we were at 91, and then this last year we were around 93. So in the budget, we projected hopefully bouncing somewhat back to 94, but if attendance was to improve, then there's an opportunity for additional revenue that is not included in the budget.
Okay. So obviously, to the parents out there, this is why we prefer the students go to Disneyland on vacation dates, not during school.
Well, also for the educational component.
Well, that too. All right. Any other comments from the public online? No? Back to the board. Any final comments? All right. So we have an action to approve it. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
A motion by Board Member Larrett. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Clark. Superintendent, if you'll take the roll, please.
Mr. Melajor,
Aye.
Mr. Merrill,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Hui,
Aye.
Ms. Larrett,
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse,
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to item B, adopt resolution number 09-07-23-07, authorizing execution of delegate agency agreement with the Sacramento Employment and Training Agency, CETA. Superintendent.
Yes, our Folsom Cordova Adult School, under the direction of Ms. Rhonda Belmain and her team, have been pursuing additional funding for the Refugee Navigator Grant, which would allow for additional support services for assisting refugee students who were displaced during the war of Ukraine. And that amount would be $58,600. $8,745 goes towards administrative costs, and then nearly $50,000 goes to the clients or the students, the adult students who are in the program. So the revised the resolution that you have before you tonight recognizes the receipt of those dollars, and that we are directing them to the English Learner Navigator program for the refugee students.
Okay, questions from the board? Questions from the public or comments online? All right, back to the board. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'll move it.
Motion by Board Member Clark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Lofthouse. Superintendent, if you'll take the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Mellinger?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, item 12, discussion items. Item A, first read, revisions to board policies 5111, admission, board policy 6158, independent study, and board policy 6200, adult education. Superintendent.
Yes, these board policies that fall under the 5,000 and 6,000 categories either deal with students or instruction in the classroom. So Dr. Huber is going to just give a brief update on these three policies. And it should be noted that they were also reviewed at our policy subcommittee on August 14th. So Dr. Huber.
Yes, good evening. Our first board policy is 5111, which deals with admission. And this policy was updated by CSBA, basically adding language because transitional kindergarten is now part of that landscape. So that is part of the policy. Also, as a district, we wanted to add some language in terms of our disenrollment policy. We wanted to be, more forward-facing, if you will, for the public. But we do have schools that are very impacted, and we find ourselves in the position oftentimes at the beginning of the school year, we're in day 1, day 2, day 3, or beyond. We have no contact with the family, but that student is holding a position in the school. Oftentimes when we have a waiting list of other students, even neighborhood kids who live across the street who are trying to get into the school. So we wanted to put it in board policy that it would be our board policy that we've had no contact with the family, that by the third day, at the end of the third day of instruction, we would disenroll the student. When the family did engage with us, they would need to re-enroll, but their place at the school might not still be there. They might be overflowed then at that point. For secondary students also, this could impact high impact classes. But again, we wanted this to be very forward facing, so we added that language to the board policy as well. All right, BP 6158 is independent study. Again, this was language added by CSBA, particularly focusing on students with IEPs and highlighting the importance that an IEP meeting does need to be held to determine whether or not independent study is appropriate and allows a student their guarantee of FAPE in that modality. So that's basically the update to, we've looked at independent study quite a bit in the last few years. It seems like every year we bring it back, but this year is back specifically looking at our special education students. And finally, BP 6200 is adult education. And there's several aspects of this in terms of what has been added. The main points were adult education being able to participate in a consortium with new materials. Also, that the board may authorize an adult education student pursuing a high school diploma to use the community college or their equivalency in pursuit of their credits. And then also that the district, they might, with the approval of the county superintendent of schools and the superintendent of public education, with other districts, if their adult education doesn't offer a class that a student needed. So a student could take a class from a different adult education program with a different district. So those are the highlights of the main changes to these policies.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Board President?
Yes, Mr. Hui.
I just wanted to clarify, Jim, on the admission policy.
Yes,
The
sir.
language says that if a student fails to report back within 3 days, what I hear you saying is that that doesn't mean attend school. It's as long as the family's been in contact with the school, we would count that as reporting to the school.
That's correct. This is we've had no parent contact at all, and the third day has gone by. There has been some discussion back and forth if we get into a 2-week situation in terms of we're 2 weeks in, and again, this is our impacted school. Past practice has been working with the family, but if we can't get a date of them actually coming back to the district of disenrolling them, and then again they have to re-enroll after that, and it would depend on whether or not that position was full. But that has been the past practice when we simply can't get a date as to when they might be returning to the school, and again we have students on a waiting list.
All right, thank you.
Even though it's not open for a vote tonight, but is there any public comment on this? Online? No? All right. Any final questions? Then it looks like we'll move to
And we'll bring those back as consent at the next meeting,
Correct.
Mr. Reed.
Yeah. That'll take us to item B, which is first read board policies 3460, financial reports and accountability, and board policy 3540, transportation. Superintendent.
Yes, these two policies are in the 3,000 category, which are business and operations, and we have two policies that have been updated through CSBA that Mr. Martin's going to highlight.
Yes, the first policy 3460, financial reports and accountability. Majority of the language here is in relationship to the interaction between the board and the county office. If there is a issue with regards to any kind of financial fiscal health concerns, that there's language that states that we will work collaboratively with the county office. There is several areas that are being removed in red. A lot of that is reference lines that CSBA is changing the formatting for. So that would be pretty much the majority of the changes. There is additional information about with regards to your audit report and if the appeals process. I've never gone through that process. I don't know of any district that has, but it is new revised language on that as well. So, and that would be it on 3460.
Okay. And 3540?
Yep. I just didn't know if anybody had questions. I thought that one might be interesting enough to ask some things about. 3540, transportation. This one is really, again, language changes in regards to the fact that starting in 23-24, the state is now providing additional funding for transportation services, and that they will be reimbursing districts for about 60% of their home-to-school transportation. As part of that funding, there was a requirement that a transportation plan was taken to the board and approved. Our plan was already approved for last year. This year we have, I believe, up until April 1st to bring the plan. We'll be bringing our plan in October. It's not going to significantly change because the truth is our current board policies are in place and they meet all the qualifications of the transportation plan. So really our plan is more or less our board policies. The key parts of the plan are that we identify how we provide transportation service to students, that we prioritize students in the grades TK through 6th grade who are the unduplicated students, and make sure that those students are not charged for transportation services. And so those are some of the key parts that are highlighted in green that are some of the new checklists. Additionally, there was additional language, it looks like new language about contracts and expenses and fees, but it was actually in a different area in the policy, and so they just kind of cleaned it up, revised some of the language and moved it to new locations. The district does not charge any fees to our reduced, free, or English language learners, and then foster youth. So our unduplicated pupils do not pay any fees for the district. So we also eliminated our application fee associated with those students as well, so there's no fees at all.
Okay. Questions from the board? Public comment? Online? All right. Well, that will be back on the next consent agenda. All right, well, that takes us to item 13, Superintendent's Report. Superintendent.
Thank you. I'd first like to thank our Folsom Middle School students and staff for their wonderful presentation this evening and kicking off our school site reports. And going forward, FCLA will incorporate staff updates during the FCLA time. So we look forward to those throughout the year. I also want to recognize the student leadership under the direction of our two student board members. Matthew and Van did a great job facilitating their first SAB meeting yesterday. And I think they were underrepresenting the number of students who were there. I counted more than 45 students, and they said there were still some that didn't come. But the group of interested student leaders from our high schools, our middle schools, our alternative schools, and is definitely increasing. And that impact and influence of student voice is very strong and clear. And I look forward to seeing what the subcommittees are going to work on this year and bringing that information back to us as well. So thank you for your leadership. Also, about a week and a half ago, we participated in a first for many of us called the topping out ceremony of Alder Creek Elementary. And it's part of the construction phase of where they're at with building Alder Creek Elementary. This is recognizing a milestone of completing the scaffolding of the ironwork on the school, and the beam, raising the beam to the highest point on the school is this milestone that signifies that the school has made it to kind of the pinnacle of building to the highest point with the safety of everyone who's working on that facility intact. And also, this is a tradition, I think, that goes back to the time of the Vikings of doing these milestones or barn raisings recognitions. So it was exciting because we got to sign the beam that is now hoisted and placed at that highest pinnacle of Alder Creek Elementary. And I also want to thank the partnership of Roblin Construction, our architects, our Folsom Cordova team that were there, and Mr. Matt Washburn, and all of your amazing team and facilities. So thank you for that. That was really quite a remarkable event. Also, starting September 15th through October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month, and we usually post those recognition months on our website. We join in celebrating and acknowledging the diverse cultures and impactful contributions of our students, our families, and our communities of our Hispanic individuals in the United States and across the globe. And then also, a couple of weeks ago, we recognized one of our Teachers of the Year at the Sacramento County Office of Education Teacher of the Year Awards event, and that the teacher that represented Folsom Cordova this year was Miss Elizabeth Isaacs from Oak Chan Elementary, kindergarten teacher. And they usually have students introduce the Teachers of the Year, and I have to say we had the best designee representing the teacher at the whole event. That's my personal opinion. She's a former student of Mrs. Isaacs. She was a kindergartner last year, so she climbed up on the little step stool, and she just stole the show when she introduced her teacher and said why she should be the Teacher of the Year for the whole county and the state and the world. So she did an amazing job, and we congratulate Mrs. Isaacs. And then both yesterday and today, we had our 2x2 meetings with the City of Rancho Cordova and the City of Folsom. At both meetings, we talked about the facility study session that we did on August 21st, going forward with the SFID bond in the Rancho Cordova existing area. But there was definitely a lot of interest in the discussion that we had, so we gave kind of the Reader's Digest version of that study session and invited folks to come to the October 9th study session. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to board member reports, and we'll start with the students. Board member Merrill.
Hello, everyone. I'd just like to thank all of the staff that made the SAB meeting run smoothly, all of the bus drivers, all of the attendance clerks, the attendance staff at every middle school and high school for helping the students get out of class on time. I'm thankful for everyone who helped that run very smoothly. I don't have much to say. I wanted to mention last week we had Cordova's first home football game, and we had a freshman barbecue that was run by our Link crew, and I'd like to thank everyone in Link Crew who stayed 13 hours at school from 8 a.m. And then as soon as they got out at 3, they had to go set up that freshman barbecue and then they had to go to the game until 9 p.m. It was longer than a work day for them, so I'd just like to thank them. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Melchor.
Thank you. Happy September, everyone. 1 month down, 9 months to go. I just want to highlight some events that happened and are happening at Vista. We had our club rush last Friday. It was really nice to see a record amount of student-led clubs across our campus. I believe there's over 40 this year, which is really great. And I believe freshmen are able to start clubs this year at our campus, which is really great to see the campus culture and meet all sorts of different people. And this week is Kindness Week at Vista, and it ties back to a central theme of the SAB, which is kindness and showing compassionate attitudes towards others. For example, today is Thankful Thursday, where you send a sticky note to a teacher and tell them how grateful you are for them. And I want to recap the SAB meeting. We had an overwhelming turnout. As Dr. Kaligian said, we blindly underestimated how many students were there, but it just gives me hope that there is still student advocacy in this district. I want to thank Dr. Pease, Ms. Gregg, and the other FCUSD faculty, clerks, registrars across the entire district for making this meeting possible. It was nice to meet the new SAB advisors, Dr. Jackson, Ms. Ambrosini, and Ms. Holton, and I'm looking forward to the development of future SAB subcommittees. I want to thank today's FMS presenters for the engaging presentation on the buddy system, once again linking back to kindness, Dr. Daniels, Ms. Hendrickson, Ms. Lee, and all the other students. And I want to recognize that September is National Suicide Prevention Month, which underscores the need for equitable student access to mental health resources. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's see, Board Member Lofthouse.
I just have a short one, just saying thank you also to Folsom Middle School students and staff for coming and presenting. The PE buddy class started when I was there as a vice principal, so I love seeing it grow to now expand to other classes as well. So that's very exciting. And congratulations again to Ms. Prenzen. Alder Creek is very lucky to have her as their principal, and I look forward to seeing how she is able to roll out that culture at the new elementary school. And thank you to Matthew and Van for kicking off the SAB meeting. I apologize I was not able to attend, but I will be there next time. So that's it.
Thank you. Board Member Clark.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to our two student board members. I actually was there. It was great to see students coming in, and especially students from Kinney High that you guys managed to get active. I don't think they've actually been on the student advisory board in previous years. So love the icebreaker. Almost jumped in, but my memory is not that good, so I probably would have bombed and been in the middle all day. Yeah, happy Hispanics Heritage Month, and I'm just kind of curious. I don't know if any of the sites out there are doing anything. Dr. Kaligian, if you can check into that to see if they are celebrating in any special kind of way. Keep the board abreast of that, make sure that we can get out and support. My visits the past 2 weeks, Cordova Gardens, Natoma Station, Cordova Villa, Peter J. Shields, Riverview STEM, Mills Middle, and last but not least, Gold Ridge Elementary. And the reason why I said Gold Ridge last is because, and charge it to my head, not my heart, normally when I'm on campus, I want to see classrooms, but I had an opportunity to hang out with Miss V. It's kind of hard to pronounce her last name, Vandermeed, I think. And I spent a significant amount of time in her classroom, and she was telling me that it was time to take the kids on a bathroom break, and I'm thinking to myself, well, there's actually a California Ed Code that should allow kindergartners to have bathrooms near their rooms or in their rooms. And I'm just thinking, why are you taking them? But anyway, it was a long jaunt for them to go to the bathroom. And she did this alone with no help whatsoever. She had 27 students, took them to the little amphitheater, sat them down, gave them their snacks, and allowed them to go 2 at a time to the restroom. And I'm thinking to myself, if that's happening, how much instructional time is being lost to walk the kids to the restroom? We're talking about kindergartners. So I'm hoping that we look at all the facilities in the district, kindergarten classes. I think there are a few that do have bathrooms. I'm thinking Williamson, maybe one. I'm thinking Gardens, maybe another one, I think. But can we look to see how many kindergarten classes have bathrooms in them? Because if that's happening at Gold Ridge, I can guarantee you it's happening everywhere else where there's loss of instructional time. So, that was my only thing and I wasn't looking to like say gotcha or anything like that, but I just kind of noticed that you have one teacher take all those kids to the restroom and monitor those kids. Now, if that isn't saying anything about how hard our teachers work, I'm gonna come out on record right now and tell you, they are working hard to do that and losing instructional time. I also want to thank Ms. Webster. I enjoyed her class, hanging out with them, answering questions, and I walked in on the cha-cha time where they were doing a cha-cha slide. Yeah, I participated for about 30 seconds. And then upon me leaving, they asked me if I ever had excuse me if I get this wrong, a taki, a chip thing, whatever. I told them no, and of course, students eat it. So I tried one, it was okay. So anyway, kudos to Ms. Webster and what she's doing in her class, and kudos to all the teachers of what you're doing. I see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Board Member Larrett.
Yeah, just wanted to thank Folsom Middle School. Amazing program. I'm very excited to see future growth in that program. It's you could tell that the kids really felt the connection there, and I'm really always excited when we have our students come in. It's the best part of being in the boardroom. Did some school visits, and one thing I really enjoyed was when we went to Mills. And went into the music class. I was very pleased to see that their orchestra program has almost like tripled in size from where it was 5 years ago. They've done an extraordinary job of building that program, and was very pleased to hear that they now also have a 0 period class for our ESL students. So, they're spending that extra time in their English classes and don't often get the opportunity to, participate in the arts because they have that extra workload in the English classes. And so I was very excited to see that Mills had, noticed that discrepancy there and was really, trying to provide that opportunity for those students to be able to come participate in the music programs. And they said they were having some great success with that. So really appreciate Mills and their attention to detail and attention to those students and giving them those extra opportunities. It was also interesting when Mr. Reed and I went to both middle schools. We were there during passing period, and it was pretty cool to see kids that were there and interacting and not on their phones and giving each other high fives and really making those student connections and really how fast they got to class. So that was very encouraging. I mean, I think after the bell rang, there was only like 2 students left in the hall. So, was very pleased to see those student interactions and, really hoping that, and I'm feeling very encouraged that we're going to see some really good student interaction for this school year. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Board Member Hui.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I'm out these past couple of days at the Student Mental Wellness Conference put on by Wellness Together. There's a couple of things that have stuck out. First, the keynote speaker today was talking about digital addiction, and really her primary suggestion was create cell phone free time. So, you know, as Ms. Larrett just mentioned, I'm very proud of our district for moving forward with how we have moved forward with that. I think it's going to be great for our students. And also just wanted to thank everyone in our district who's involved with mental health and wellness, from the administrators to the teachers to our MFTs and social workers. I know there's so many people that are involved. We have a lot of work left to do, but I know we've got an incredibly committed staff. So thank you for that work. You know, it often is a thankless job, but we appreciate you and all the work that you're doing on our campuses.
Thank you. As for my report, just very briefly, and actually I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Board Member Larrett mentioned. So, you know, we did tour both Mills and Mitchell and Kinney High School. We were, you know, wanted to check in and see how the cell phone adoption was going with the Yonder bags. You know, I had been by both Folsom Middle and Sutter a week and a half earlier. The implementation was delayed just to get the communication out within the Rancho Cordova community. And the results were amazing. They really were. And, you know, we were, and by the way, I'll point out that Kinney High School voluntarily adopted the Yonder bag. We didn't require that any of the high schools to adopt it, but this is something that they wanted to do. And it's interesting to hear some of the stories that you hear, but there was one teacher who actually, she had to catch up on her lesson planning because I guess she had been there for a number of years, but never went through the agenda her lesson plan so fast. But without the cell phones, she was able to get through the lesson plan much faster than in prior years. And I consider that a welcome problem, right? And, you know, you know, just again, Board Member Larrett mentioned it. It really was heartwarming to see at passing time at Mills the student interaction. I mean, I've been on the board 5 years now, and I have never seen that type of interaction on one of our campuses during passing time before. In fact, I guess if I have to think back on it, I probably haven't seen that type of interaction since I was in school, and we didn't have cell phones, so maybe that helps explain it. But anyway, and I appreciate you know, all the teachers and parents who've come up to me. Gosh, I don't think since school has begun, maybe 4 or 5 a week. Is that in the oddest places, in the grocery store, you know, in a meeting, that have come up and said, thank you so much for this middle school policy. It's going incredibly well. We love it. And, you know, admittedly, we're a little nervous, right? This was a kind of a major step for us to take. And, you know, going into the first day of school, there were some, you know, rumblings of parent discord about, you know, their youngsters not having their cell phones on them. But everything that we're hearing now, including, you know, some, at least in one example, one parent came up to me and said, you know, I thought I was going to hate this, but this is great. This is wonderful. So it's great to hear that. Not to say, you know, anything is perfect. I'm sure there are you know, hiccups that we're dealing with. And, you know, as Board Member Larrett said, I'm eager to see, you know, what this looks like 6 months into it. You know, at winter break, you know, I think we're going to, in November, have an update from staff. But obviously, I'm eager to see that, and over time, I'm eager to see the statistics and the data and what the data tells us. And, you know, we're hopeful that the data will produce, you know, perhaps higher attendance, lower disruptions, perhaps higher grades. But, you know, obviously, time will tell, but it's a step. So, all right, that's all I have for this evening. And that takes us to advanced planning. Our next board meeting is September 21st, 2023. You have the 12-month calendar there for your reference. And that, the next study session is on that 12-month calendar, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the suggested future agenda items that you have there. Is there any additional items that anybody wants to add to that?
I had something.
Sure.
I attended Folsom High School's back to school night and was in one of the ethnic studies classes, which the teacher was so excited to teach, and just in the short amount of time, how excited the students were and the amazing products they were turning out so quickly. I would love to be able to have a presentation from some of the ethnic studies students and teachers come in and just kind of give that brief how it's going. If it's anything indicative of what I saw at Folsom High School, it's incredible. And the kids are so happy to be in it because it's something that they kind of brought up grassroots too, so they feel very proud to be there. So I would love to see a presentation for that.
Yeah, I think, everybody agree? Yeah, sounds great, great idea. All right, anything else?
No, there was one, and I sent that to you, Mr. President, and the superintendent. There was a student at Folsom High that was part of the robotics team, and they wanted to do a presentation. Would love to see that, what they're doing. And I think it also included Sutter Middle, and I think there were 2 from Theodore Judah and 2 from Riverview.
I think on the condition that they actually bring a robot here.
Oh, they will, they can. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to see the robot. Is everybody good with that? Yeah, good. All right. Not hearing any others, that takes us to item 16. I just had to get my Roman numerals down there for a second, which is recess to closed session. We do have to go back to closed session on one item. It shouldn't take very long. I suspect superintendent 20 minutes or so. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I, for purposes of the public and staff, I know there's not gonna be any report out of closed session. So if you wanna hang out till we come back, that's fine. We will come back out and report no action, then gavel out. So, and I'll defer to the superintendent on which staff can stay and leave. So we will be in recess for 20 to 30 minutes. Thanks. All right, we're resuming open session. Let's see, item 19, reporting out of closed session. Superintendent.
We have no action to report out of closed session.
All right, thank you. And that takes us to item 20, adjournment. We will adjourn by unanimous consent unless there's an objection. Not hearing any objections, we're adjourned.